Been a long day.
Yeah, it is a long day.
We're just gonna move it.
We live yet?
Listen, we are always more live on YouTube.
I should have been
than
on
I realize. And if I go back and watch, I'm like, oh, that's a lot of our conversation.
Really?
Uh-huh. A good 2-3 minutes ahead of. Be aware. This will be on YouTube.
Might have to talk to Keith about that.
Everybody in the audience, thanks for being here tonight. All right, good evening and welcome to the March 11th, 2021 City Council meeting for the City of Xenia. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and I will do an invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice President Levi Dean. If you could all rise, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to make decisions in our community to help people. All of us here tonight, dear Lord, I appreciate that opportunity. We thank you for the community that we live in, for the freedoms that we have, the safeties that we have, for our staff that's in place. Thank you for our school system, our educational opportunities, those opportunities for employment, and those that have retired and chose Xenia as the place to grow old. Dear Lord, thank you again for your safety. Give us safety tonight as we leave this meeting, and give us wisdom during the meeting so that we can make the right decisions. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Vice President Dean, for that Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I will ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean? Aye. Councilman Scriven?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Here.
Councilman Urschel?
Here.
Mayor Mays?
Here.
President Smith?
Here. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. Our first meeting is minutes from the February 18th, 2021 meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes, please.
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Any corrections, additions, or questions regarding the minutes before us? All right, not seeing any. Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Abstain.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next is the approval of minutes from the February 25th, 2021 regular meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved by the Vice President and a second by Councilman Scrivens. Do we have any questions, comments, or changes regarding the minutes? Rain sounds pretty strong. All right, not seeing any. Get a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. There are no special presentations scheduled for tonight's meeting. Audience comments: due to the COVID-19, this meeting is closed to the public. The public can submit comments or questions to council by emailing the city clerk by 3 o'clock on the meeting day. There is no comments from the audience to discuss tonight. However, I did receive a letter from a group of concerned citizens regarding a nuisance residence at the corner of East 2nd and Monroe. Those concerns have been forwarded to the appropriate city staff members, and later tonight our city manager may discuss this in his report to council. So moving on is old business. Our first item is ordinance 2021-03, a second reading. This is amending Section 260.03 of the codified ordinance of the City of Xenia, Ohio, to add the classified position of police service aide or parking function and engineering project manager, and amending a maintenance worker, and amending Section 274.07 of the codified ordinance of the City of Xenia to add the classified position of engineering project manager. This is originally introduced by Vice President Dean at our last meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Move for passage by the Vice President. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scrivens. At this time, I'll open up the floor. Do we have any questions or concerns regarding this ordinance? All right. Not seeing any, so we will ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. There's no public hearing scheduled for tonight's meeting, so our next item on the agenda is new business. Item A is Resolution 2021-M, titled an emergency. This is adopting a statement of the municipal services to be provided to 24.544 acres located along Lower Bellbrook Road that is proposed for annexation from Xenia Township to the City of Xenia, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Merriman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 709.023C, after filing the petition for annexation for the aforementioned properties on Lower Bellbrook Road, council must adopt a statement of services that the city will provide to the property upon annexation, including an approximate date by which those services would be provided. This must be completed within 20 days of the filing. Resolution 2021-M, presented as an emergency this evening in order to meet that 20-day deadline, outlines the city services that would be provided to the parcels requested for annexation in the event that the county approves the annexation and the city ultimately accepts it, which are the remaining steps to that process. As expected, the services that would be provided are the same services provided for other parcels within the city, within our corporate limit. The above-mentioned parcels are currently bordered on three sides by the city. The proposed annexation takes in approximately a 780-foot long portion of Lower Bellbrook Road, which will become a portion of our city street that we already have there on Bellbrook. Passage of this resolution does not obligate the city to ultimately accept the annexation. That would come later. Assuming the county commissioners approve the annexation, city will still accept or reject that annexation again at a later date. So we are requesting this evening, recommending that the resolution be approved as an emergency that, in order to meet the statutory requirement as cited.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. At this time, I will make a opportunity for anyone who would like to make the motion as an emergency to adopt this resolution.
I'll move as an emergency.
Thank you. Move as an emergency by Mayor Mays. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Urschel. This time, is there any questions or comments anyone would like to make regarding this adoption? All right. We are not seeing any, so at this time, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, item B, is Resolution 2021-N, also titled an emergency. This is adopting a statement regarding zoning buffers for the proposed annexation of 24.54 acres along Lower Bellbrook Road from Xenia Township to the City of Xenia and declaring an emergency. Mr. Merriman, would you like to discuss this?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, item B is related to this proposed annexation on Lower Bellbrook, as also required by ORC. Within 20 days of the filing of the annexation petition, council must adopt a statement regarding the possible incompatible land uses in the requirement for zoning buffers. The resolution states that the resolution states that should the property be annexed, and the city's zoning permit uses that are incompatible with the surrounding properties based on the township zoning, that proper buffers would be incorporated at the land. Approval of this resolution does not acknowledge the existence of any incompatibilities, it's easy for me to say, and the city staff at this point doesn't have any reason to believe that there would be any issue, but again, should there be something that emerges, we have that ability to intercede. So we are requesting that council approve this resolution again as an emergency in order to meet that 20-day deadline that's stipulated in the ORC.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I will ask for a motion to adopt a statement regarding the zoning buffers.
I'll move.
Moved by Councilman Urschel. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Vice President Dean. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, thank you, Councilman Scrivens.
could I get a definition of a zoning buffer?
It might be...
You get to slinging around terms.
Yeah, so it might be different types of vegetative buffers that are required, so it creates a physical and a noise barrier against those uses. That would be a typical type of example that we would.
Thank you,
Could be other more solid surfaces, but typically be some type of vegetative buffer.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Does that suffice? Any other questions?
But just the question I had is so the way the language reads is the city would determine if there was a need, and then the city would approve the buffer at that point. Does the township get involved in this discussion at all at that point, since it's an incompatibility with our zoning? And once again, this is all a what if, because there isn't any right now. I'm just kind of curious that we have an issue where the township has a certain intention of property adjacent to ours, and ours is incompatible with that. Do we have any discussions with the township at that point?
Yeah, I think that's certainly on the table with any annexation situation where you want that to be as amicable as possible. The procedures themselves are laid out in statute,
Okay.
so we're following those procedures, but I think a good practice, a good governance practice would be to make sure that there's some communication with the township leadership.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
So,
I'm sorry.
if I could, Mr. President, so the zoning buffers are similar to, say, sound berms or something?
To some extent, yeah. I mean, oftentimes you'll see, maybe the arborvitae, the tall-growing arborvitae that might be installed. So it's probably as much of anything an aesthetic, although depending on the circumstances, it could be something a little more substantive that might be asked or required.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, not seeing any other questions. Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor May?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item C is Resolution 2021-0, also titled an emergency. This is authorizing the submittal of an application for Greene County Community Investment Grant for the EV building project located at 17 West 3rd Street and declaring an emergency. Mr. City Manager, would you like to explain this?
Yes, sir, thank you. The AV building is a former grocery store warehouse located at the corner of South Detroit and 3rd Street. City has viewed this as a good redevelopment opportunity for quite some time. The warehouse has largely been vacant for many years, but its historic nature and the architecture, as well as the strategic location and the capacity for significant usable square footage, make it a really good redevelopment opportunity and a fairly high priority for us. And we've worked very closely with the new or the current owners to try to position the property for redevelopment, and we've had a good partnership there. The current owners have lined up some potential partners that collectively are working through a process to seek out and secure additional financing resources in order to be able to rehabilitate the building, which is quite substantial in terms of need for utilities and such for that space. With that in mind, the prospective reuse for the facility would be, based on their current plan, a mixed-use facility that would include, in part, a community workspace, event and meeting facilities, and food and beverage service entities that would co-locate within that space. Staff's recommending council authorize an application for a Greene County Community Investment Grant on behalf of the AV Building Rehab Project. The Greene County Development Department has introduced a new grant program known as the Community Investment Grant. This program is designed to provide financial assistance to jurisdictions for the development of sites and infrastructure designed to attract and sustain small businesses in our communities. The Community Investment Grant Program allows each community to submit one application per year, so you want to be strategic in the application that you're submitting because this is limited. And we also want to submit this application as quickly as we can, as we estimate that this will be a very competitive grant here in Greene County. We feel that this is a high priority project, and it's a project that appears to be very close to moving forward, and so if this piece can help get it across the finish line, we think it's a great utilization of those grant resources. So we are recommending this evening that Council authorize Resolution 2021-0, again as an emergency that would allow us to submit this as quickly as possible because this is an open competitive grant that we think will be quite attractive among our sister communities in the county.
All right, thank you, Mr. City Manager. So on behalf of the owner of the EV building, at this time I'll seek any of my colleagues who would like to make a motion to approve the resolution as an emergency to authorize an application for Greene County Community Investment Grant.
So moved as an emergency.
Thank you. Moved by the mayor as an emergency. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Urschel. Any further discussion regarding this? I think you explained that pretty thoroughly.
I'll just make one statement. We went over this with the Economic Development Advisory Board as well, too, and we got favorable feedback from that board, for the investment into this facility. So,
All right. Thank you very much, Councilman Scrivens.
Just for the community to know that grant amount is $200,000.
And that would be in conjunction with several other state economic development grants or mechanisms that the ownership has applied for and is actually progressing through the evaluation processes for those, in addition to some traditional financing and other things. Obviously, that amount of square footage with a building that old is going to take quite a bit of investment on the front end to bring the space up to code and make it a space that can be occupied. But it's a huge opportunity for our community, and we're very excited about it.
Thank you. So I know because of the current condition of the EV building, it hasn't been real marketable. So they have some kind of marketing plan in place once this is rehabbed?
Yes, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think what I can share is that the current owners are in the process of bringing some partners on board that have some similar projects and proven models and would add some instant capacity. And then through that, there are some other potential lessees that would be attached to that. So these pieces have come together. I mean, we've been working with these owners for several years, and of course COVID hit, which slowed many things down.
Right.
But this seems to be coming together at the right time, and the pieces falling into place to make this quite viable in the near future.
All right, very good. Any other questions tonight? All right, we have a motion and a second, and this is an emergency, so roll call, please.
Vice President Dean. Aye. Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, letter D, is Resolution 2021-P, titled an introduction. This is approving the application submitted by our city manager for the establishment of a designated outdoor refreshment area known as Adora in the city's historic downtown district. Mr. Merriman?
Thank you, sir. As has been discussed previously with council, the city is eligible to consider the creation of this designated outdoor refreshment area here in our downtown. DORAs have been instituted in numerous communities across the state of Ohio, and many communities right here in the Miami Valley region quite successfully and generally without issue. The service, I should say the value proposition of Adora is intended to provide additional opportunities for promotion of our small businesses in our downtown, businesses that might include local food service, hospitality, entertainment venues, and so forth, by creating this designated zone where alcoholic beverages can be consumed while those individuals are shopping in the downtown area within this zone, and then partaking of any other activities within that zone. This evening, I am presenting staff, I'm presenting on behalf of staff this application for council consideration. So we're looking for an introduction this evening. Should the council approve the application, the proposed DORA would be created. And upon that creation of the DORA, we do have to send notice of the approval and a description of that DORA program to the Ohio Liquor Control as well as the Ohio Department of Public Safety's investigative unit. Those are provisions in statute that are required. Upon passage and notification to the state, staff would intend to spend the next month plus on education outreach and the necessary prep to be able to have the DORA up and running, with the intent that we'd be able to have this in place for the coming fair weather season, so as of approximately the first week of May. So again, this evening we're seeking an introduction to this, and welcome conversation with council as this moves through the process.
Thank you very much.
I'll introduce it.
Introduced by Councilwoman Dean. Thank you. Our next item, letter E, is also a resolution of 2021-letter Q titled an introduction. This is amending policy EBM-3.10 titled Health and Dental Insurance of the City of Xenia's Employee Benefits Manual. Mr. Merriman, could you explain this?
Thank you, sir. As previously discussed with council and at your direction, staff is presenting Resolution 2021Q for introduction and this evening and consideration. The resolution would amend the Employee Benefits Manual Policy 3.10 and update our health insurance premium cost split with non-union employees from a 70-30 to an 80-20 model. The change has already been negotiated and applied to most of our collective bargaining contracts as detailed in your agenda report. This change would then make this benefit provision applicable to our non-union employees. The measure is intended to make the city a more attractive employer and frankly to be more competitive in what has proven to be an increasingly challenging labor market, both public and private sector. Staff is recommending introduction this evening for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the city manager? All right, not seeing any. Who would like to introduce this?
I'll introduce.
Introduced by Councilman Urschel. Thank you very much. Our next item, item F, is an administrative motion. This is authorizing the purchase of 2 Physio Control LifePak 15 V.4 cardiac monitors and accessories from Stryker Medical through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program in the amount of $39,317. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. The city's capital plan, as well as our approved budget for this year for the fire division, included resources for cardiac monitor replacement. The fire division currently utilizes 6 cardiac monitors, and we station these in each of our critical frontline response vehicles. This is a really important piece of equipment, life-saving equipment. That's tremendous technology. With this in mind, we were recently made aware of the opportunity to purchase 2 cardiac monitors at a discount if one of those or those monitors that are being replaced are a version 1 or version 2 model of the LifePak that we would trade in. I wanted to note, as is detailed in your agenda report, the version 1 we can no longer get replacement parts. It's completely obsolete. Version 2 is almost to that point. So this would allow us for slightly more than what we had budgeted for 1 to be able to do the trade-in and get 2 of these replacements. So this is a really good value for the city. So this evening, with this discount applied that Stryker Medical, which is formerly Physio Control, is offering, we are requesting the council authorize this opportunity to do this trade-in and approve this so that we can bring these new units or these updated units into service.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I'll seek a motion to authorize the purchase of these 2 monitors.
So moved.
Moved by the mayor and seconded by Councilman Branham. Thank you. All right, I'll open up the floor. Any questions tonight?
Mr. President, I would just add that I think about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, we, working with our public relations staff, did a video with some of the fire division personnel describing what we do at certain scenes. And this is a piece of equipment that we actually profile, not video. It is a remarkable piece of equipment that has multiple functions, including not just the cardiac monitor capacity, but several other life-saving components that are incorporated into this. So it's an expensive piece of equipment, but as we've been very transparent with the public, this is a really valuable instrument in the course of our emergency medical service provision. So I know folks see those price tags and I think that's a lot of money, but again, these are extremely valuable pieces of equipment for us in terms of the service delivery.
Right, and for those that are watching, our fire chief is in the audience tonight. Chief Risby, thanks for being here tonight. And anyone else have questions or comments regarding this purchase? All right, we'll get a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Scriven.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, letter G, is it also an administrative motion. This is authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Strand Associates Incorporated to provide engineering services for the Glady Run Wastewater Master Plan and Asset Management Plan project. Mr. Merriman, this is all yours.
Thank you, sir. In order to accommodate future development and growth in the city, and particularly in the southern portion of our community, and to be very, very specific, around the Green Regional Business Park, staff believes there's an immediate need to determine the necessary downstream sanitary sewer improvements that would be required to properly convey raw sewage from that regional business park to our Glady Run wastewater treatment plant, which is the plant that services the southern portion of the city. As we discussed with council during our capital plan review last year, the development of a Glady Run wastewater master plan and asset management plan will not only prioritize future capital improvements to our collection system, but this effort would also prioritize the needs for improvements at the Glady Run plant. So we both have the transmission process as well as a treatment process that we're able to plan for long term. The plan will involve flow monitoring, the Glady Run plant evaluation and asset risk ranking, as well as collection system evaluation and flow modeling. So there are several components to this overall evaluation and planning process. While the immediate focus will be on the area of the Green Regional Business Park, the entire Glady Run wastewater treatment plant basin will be a part of that overall evaluation. On November 16th of this past year, the engineering division received 4 responses to a request for qualifications to provide this service, from which the staff went on to interview 2 firms. And through that process, Strand Associates Incorporated was identified as the best qualified firm. Staff is requesting authorization to execute a contract with Strand Associates Incorporated to provide the engineering services for the Glady Run Wastewater Master Plan and Asset Management Plan project in a not-to-exceed amount of $199,300 upon such terms and conditions as agreed upon by the law director and myself. And so this is a big body of work. It's a big price tag, but this is a really important part of our infrastructure that we need to make sure that we have in place to be able to accommodate additional growth, particularly in the industrial areas of our city.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I will open the floor for a motion authorizing the city manager to execute this contract with Strand Associates.
I'll move.
Moved by Councilman Urschel
I'll second that.
and seconded by,
I'll second.
Councilman Branham. Thank you. Any discussion tonight regarding this contract?
Mr. President, I would add that this particular part of this planning process will, as I indicated, evaluate the wastewater treatment plant associated with the Glady Run system. A few years down the road, after this is complete and we've begun implementation of the strategy steps that this would identify, we would look at the Ford Road portion of the community, the northern half of the city. But we felt this was the priority area because it's tied to our industrial areas. We've got great, storm sewer and water capacity. Our sanitary sewer is the one component that we're a little behind in. So we wanted to focus on this to make sure we have all the utilities in place if we have large users that would arrive in our industrial parks, that we can accommodate them immediately.
All right, thank you. And as far as budgetary impact, this is water and sewer funds?
Sewer funds specifically, and again, as we've reported to council, our utility funds are actually in great position, which is why we really haven't needed to seek any additional rate increases for the past couple of years and do not plan to do so this year as well.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Scriven.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item, item H, is also an administrative motion. This is authorizing the city manager to execute contracts for water distribution and sewer collection supplies for year 2021. Mr. Merriman?
Thank you, sir. I'm about done. 2 items to go here. As an occasional housekeeping task, the city does annually seek proposals for the provision of water distribution and sewer collection supplies. On February 23rd, proposals were received from 6 vendors for the provision of both water and sewer supplies for our public service department. All vendors propose competitive pricing for the various supplies that we have on that list. And that's detailed in the tabulation, the bid tabulation, which was attached to your agenda report. The prices proposed would be valid for 1 year, and the list of bidders includes the firms of Buckeye State Pipe and Supply, Core and Main, E.J. Prescott, Ferguson Waterworks, ProSource Water Products, and Neenah Foundry. As we've done in the past, staff is recommending again this year that all 6 proposals from each vendor on that list be accepted, with the stipulation that we would pursue the lowest price quoted for any of the individual, particular items that are listed among the 6. And of course, those then items need to meet all of our specifications. But again, the system's worked well in the past, and we think this is an efficient way to do it. So staff is recommending or requesting authority this evening to enter into contracts with these firms for the prospective provision of these supplies.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I will seek a motion authorizing the city manager to execute said contracts for the supplies. And for those that are watching, basically you buy what's highlighted from that vendor because it's the best price. So that's very, actually, pretty smart
Yeah.
to spread the wealth
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Any motion? Take a
So moved.
motion right now. Brett?
So moved.
By Councilman Branham, and a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dean. Thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding this contract?
I just think that the staff, Mr. President, if I could, I just think that the staff could be complimented when they have already did the market analysis and they can actually pinpoint the lowest bid. I think that's excellent. So, give you a hats off on that one.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? All right, I don't see any, so roll call. Thank you.
Vice President Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. All right, our next item, item I, is an administrative motion authorizing the city manager to execute a contract for governmental electric aggregation supply services. Mr. Merriman.
We're back at that season again with electric aggregation. Our voters previously approved an opportunity to do electric aggregation, residential aggregation for our community. We've had a program in place since 2013, and we've maintained that program successfully, saving our consumers locally quite a bit of money over that period of time. Our current electric supply contract with Dynegy expires at the end of April, and so it is time to evaluate options and take some action so that we can facilitate a new opt-out process and then leading into a new supply services contract period that would extend, for a couple years. Presently, Palmer Energy is our approved aggregation consultant, and their services aid the city and administration, not only our electric aggregation program, but our gas aggregation program. We've worked with Palmer, and they have, on our behalf and several other communities, issued an RFP for electric supply service pricing that would commence in May of this year, and they looked at terms of 12, 24, and 36 months. Despite what has been an extremely chaotic past couple of months in the energy market with things that have happened in Texas and other things that are occurring, and some uncertainty because of the change of administration federally, pricing is still beneficial, and the results of the bids that we solicited are positive. So at the recommendation of Palmer, we are presenting to council a request to authorize us to move forward with the contracting process. And as you recall, the bids submitted for this type of electric or this type of utility commodity have very short windows that they will be guaranteed. So we do an initial feeler, basically, to put out to see what pricing looks like. And then we would do, with your approval tonight, a refresh next week, early sometime, that would allow us to get up to the minute pricing. The projection is that, based on what we saw previously, that we'd be able to get some competitive pricing that would save our community, our local consumers in the community, versus the price to compare, which is the standard that you use in this particular case. So we're recommending the authorization to be able to go back and do that refresh, and then, assuming we get a good offer, to execute that contract and put this into place. And then we would work with Palmer to refresh that opt-out process with this new contract on the supply taking effect in May. It's really raining hard.
Just hoping we had a good contract with the roofing vendor. So, it's pretty loud. So, all right, thank you very much. So at this time, I'll seek a motion from my colleagues to authorize our city manager to execute a contract for our electric generation services with a qualified vendor of choice.
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Do we have a second? Seconded by Vice President. Any further discussion on this?
Brent, just a clarification. So as we enter into this contract, if you're a resident of the city, you can or can't, you can choose this as an aggregated supplier, or you can choose an alternate supplier if you choose. But this is available to all the residents in the city as an aggregated supplier.
All of our residents, and then any smaller accounts, smaller commercial accounts. So it's primarily generally for small accounts, including residents and small businesses. It is an opt-out program, so you're included. You have to go through the process to opt out. Residents should be pretty familiar with this. This is, I think, the fourth or fifth time that we've gone through the process. We've had good results, to be honest, and I think we've reported previously we've saved as a community hundreds of thousands of dollars over years for our consumers and and some of our small businesses through this process. So yeah, if you don't want to participate, you don't have to.
Right.
If you're locked into a contract that has better terms, congratulations, you don't have to participate in this.
Right. Great, thanks.
Any other questions tonight? No? All right. At this time, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Moreno?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Our next item is item J, administrative motion. This is adopting rules of council. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to Law Director. Madam Law Director, can you hear us?
Good evening. How are you all this evening?
Good. Thank you.
Am I loud enough?
Yeah.
Not too loud?
We got you.
We got you.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. I won't go into a lot of detail. We've been through this with you twice at the last two meetings, going through the proposed rules in a lot of detail. The city charter since 1998 has provided that council may establish its own rules of council. Those rules are to determine how you conduct your business. It's things as meetings, your order of business, set forth rules regarding attendance of council members, the role of staff members at your meetings, the precedence and the use of motions. We have been following Robert's Rules of Order, which most communities do. Most of your rules of council, as we've presented them, are based on Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules are very arcane. It's a very specific set of knowledge. We'd like you to have something that's a little more user-friendly. And as we've discussed with council, one of the things that we want to do with these rules as well is establish some new standing committees. Standing committee means, in contrast to an ad hoc committee, which is created for just one specific item, a standing committee is just that. It stands. We would like to get council more involved. We are recommending 5 new committees. There would be 3 council members on each of those committees, with 1 council member chairing each. We've gone through this with you in detail. In conjunction with this, probably at your next meeting, we will also be presenting a rewrite of Title 8 of the Administrative Code, which is boards and commissions. And part of the goal there was just to clean up. We had a number of boards and commissions that had duplicate roles. We have a number that we will be rolling their duties into these new standing committees. So just a way to make staff feels council's organization more efficient, and to get more involvement between staff and council on a more regular basis than just during the council meeting. And this was a group effort. I went through these several times. Both Brent, Ryan, and Michelle were very helpful in giving feedback and in reviewing these before we presented them to you. So I would like to offer my colleagues, Brent, Ryan, Michelle, if you have anything you would like to add.
Yeah, I would just add first, thanks to the law director who helped lead the conversation. This is a long process, a lot of detail, but as I think, speaking on behalf of the three of us, we think this is important so that the council can establish some procedural and conduct norms that you're all in agreement with. But I would offer, I think, from my perspective, probably the most important piece of this is this change in the committee function. We are expunging some outdated committees that weren't being used at all, consolidating those functions, and then adding some of these new standing committees. And doing this, I think, will allow members of the council to be in more regular policy-level dialogue with staff on key areas of service delivery and concern. Public safety, our utilities and transportation, economic development related activities, and really aligns, a better flow of conversation to provide, us as staff with some additional insight in terms of what council's thinking, with the intent that as policy issues that need to go to all of council, we've gone through a first step, a litmus test with council on some of these key issues through that committee process. So I think that's a great addition. It provides transparency and promotes communication between council and staff. Upon your approval of this, look for our request to get these committees launched very soon, because we do have a backlog of topics that we want to begin discussing with council immediately. It's a little more time. I know you guys make a lot per hour now, and this will increase that. No, I'm kidding. But we think it's time well invested. So.
All right, thank you.
Got anything else to add?
All right.
Brent just likes to talk. No, I'm just kidding.
Madam Law Director, what else, anything else you would like to add to this at this time?
Just the only other thing I would add is one of the things we did build into these rules is that every 5 years, your new legislative review and government affairs committee will be reviewing them to make sure that they're working for you. If we need to add anything, change anything. So this is going to be a fluid document that we can modify and change to meet the needs of council as your needs change.
Thank you very much. All right, so does anyone have any questions for the Law Director?
I would just like to thank Michelle for reaching out to the other cities and collecting that information that I requested about the Sergeant at Arms. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I think we're going to discuss that shortly. So at this time, I'll seek a motion. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Law Director,
Yes, sir.
in Section 4, when we were talking about the order of business, special presentations that you have as needed, could it be if any, or could we add that? We may not have, but if any sounds a little more than as needed. Just something to think about. And then also, after item J, where we have appointed officials, it didn't say anything about the board and committee reports. We usually have that as part of the agenda here in terms of reports of committees. And I didn't see that. You have the appointed officials reports, but there's no designation for reports of boards and commissions.
Well, I think our thinking was, as far as staff, and Brent, Ryan, Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we thought that would become part of the council comments. If you chair a certain commission or board, when it's your turn during council comments, you could, we had Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, we had Planning Commission meeting. That's what we were thinking, just to shrink down the agenda. If you would like that language as needed, changed to if any, and if you would like the Board and Commission reports added back in, then I'd suggest you table this tonight, and we'll bring it back with those amendments at the next meeting.
Well, I mean, it's been a part of the agenda since I can remember, and now it's not. And even though you report on your various boards, there are other comments that may be under council comments. Just a thought. And then finally, Mr. President, if I could, on 404, when we go into executive session there, and it says that to be held at any time during the meeting, and it doesn't say by majority vote. I mean, you can...
No, it says in accordance with Section 6, because Section 6 goes through and describes how an executive session is to be held, the vote that's required, the allowable reasons.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. So rather than table this, I'd kind of like to get this
Yeah, we can
through.
go ahead and vote.
Can we make a motion to amend K to be council comment / report?
Or you can just, it's an administrative motion. As an administrative motion, you could just make a motion to approve with these two changes.
All right,
So moved.
thank you. So at this time, okay, want to make sure I'm doing this right. So we need a motion to adopt the rules of council, and then we're going to need, pass this, and then we're going to need to make another motion.
He can do it with just one motion
Okay.
as amended with those two. So if there's a
Okay.
second, then those amendments would be added to this motion officially, and then you would vote all at once for that.
All right, thank you. All right, so
And my understanding of the two amendments are under the order of business in 403, where it says as needed, we're changing that to if any.
For special
And
presentation.
we are putting board and commission reports in between J and K. Or did you want those between I and J?
no, J and K.
J and K.
J and K.
Okay.
Okay, so at this time, I will ask any of my colleagues who would like to introduce this tonight with the proper language of adopting rules of council and with the provisions of changing special presentations worded as if any, and adding board and commission reports between J and K. Moved by Councilman Scrivens.
As amended.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Urschel. Any further discussion or questions, comments concerning these rules of council?
I want to thank the law director,
Yeah.
Mr. President, for her
All right.
outstanding work on this particular piece of legislation.
Thank you. I'll piggyback on that. And since our law director has been with our city, I've seen nothing but clean up professionalism regarding making us run legally correctly and efficient. A lot of this stems to the charter committee making improvements that we can bring to the voters. Because even though our charter is not that old, since it was updated in 1998, it does need to be tweaked and brought to the voters for changes as our city constantly is evolving and changing. So again, thank you, Madam Law Director, for the efforts and the work that you put into this. We've had a couple different discussions and long meetings regarding this. So at this time, if I'm not seeing any other comments, no, we'll ask for a roll call to adopt these rules of council. Thank you.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Moran?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. So before we move on to K, my next question, Currently, as of right now, Mr. City Manager, you're the Sergeant of Arms, is that correct?
Under this, it would fall under the purview of the Public Safety Director or the Chief of Police as designated. So I know we've had some discussion about this. What I will tell you is, based on our conversations, my position is that we should have a security presence here. And my recommendation is that we utilize a duty officer to do that. I'm certainly open to the idea of having the Chief of Police here, but what I will tell you is, for the immediate future, due to some health considerations, that really is not practical. So as we would open back up to the public and introduce this, the security presence, which I think probably will be sooner than later, as we talked about before the meeting, I would foresee that we would have a duty officer here.
Right, thank you. So, as we had in our budget meeting, we discussed that although tonight's meeting is closed due to COVID, because the situation is changing with COVID, things are starting to open up. More people are getting vaccinated on a daily basis. We want to be as transparent to our community as possible. So, if there's no objection from the council, beginning next meeting, we will limit capacity with hoping going forward to open up by April or May completely. Does that sound fair and good? We don't need to make any motion on that, but we do on the Sergeant of Arms? Or
no, it's incorporated into the rules that council's approved. Okay. I think that the core issue is, for me to communicate my expectation that we would use that duty officer. Now, we can have a conversation offline or even tonight if you want to. I'm not opposed long-term to looking at having the chief here, but I want to be clear, certainly initially, that really, for health reasons, is not an option. So.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on, item K is an administrative motion. This is approving our schedule of bills tonight in the large amount. I hate to even read it off. $3,708,170.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Would just note that on the schedule of bills, the vast majority of this is a payment over $3,350,000, easy for me to say, for payment to acquire the leasehold interest in the town square. And so that payment has actually already been made, as council approved a couple meetings ago. This is really us posting it to our books, and so obviously that's a very large expenditure that inflates the scheduled bills amount. Outside of that, there really aren't any irregular, out of the ordinary expenses on the bills, but I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Any questions tonight for the finance director?
Mr. President, could we just reiterate that with that town square purchase, that the proceeds for that purchase are not coming from any other service?
Correct.
Or capital fund. It's non-tax revenue that's been dedicated for that purpose, and specifically the lease proceeds from the existing lessees at Town Square. So as we presented to all of you, that property cash flows positive. So based on the revenue coming in, we can pay for that loan amount and all the operations and still be in the black for that project.
Right.
So that purchase is not taking away from streets or from any other operations. We just want to be crystal clear with the public about that. And we've been very careful in putting it together an accounting process to track all of those funds to help demonstrate that.
Right. And before your question, is it fair for me to reiterate what you discussed earlier, that those parties that are leasing currently at Xenia Town Square are actually very open and thrilled with the fact that you have met with these entities and are showing them future improvements, an interest in their business, and giving them opportunities to continue?
We've worked with our property management firm that council's approved, Dillon Group, and we have done individual meetings with all of the business owners or the lessees of title on those instruments to let them know what the city's intentions are, to have conversations about any needs that they have with their space that haven't been met. A few of those have been identified and taken care of. We've committed with our property management firm to do a better job, particularly in the exterior of some of the maintenance. So you're going to see some improvements with the driveway into next to the Fifth Third building. We're going to do some work there. Some of the concrete sidewalk areas, we're going to do some replacements. I think they're out there today, power washing, doing some cleaning and sprucing up of the building. So our intent is to be a partner with those businesses that are leasing space and have them be part of the conversation for how does that space evolve into the future. And so to this point, I think it's fair to say those conversations have been positive and productive.
All right, thank you. All right, any questions tonight for?
Sorry. If you don't mind, just to reiterate what Brent was saying, that is not our city employees that's out there completing these works. The city staff is not going out and pressure washing out in front of these buildings, and the city staff is not out pouring concrete, correct?
Yeah, at this point, all that work that's being done is being done by contractors that are all contracted through the property management firm. Now, we may end up doing some of the concrete and the roadway work, but again, we'll probably work any of those expenses through this overall funding process. So.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, questions regarding the schedule of bills?
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilman
Thank you,
Scrivens.
Mr. Finance Director, just one question this evening. Page 3, the first one. What are we saddling up?
I can probably answer that. That is a component within our buried infrastructure for water and sewer. So if you look, that Core and Main is actually one of the vendors that you approved tonight for the supplies.
Sewer.
So that is a piece of equipment that's used to marry joints, I think. Right, Chris? I didn't hear what it was. The saddle that's mentioned in the schedule bills. Right. So you have a segmented joint that you use that appliance called a saddle to make that joint connection. It's not actually for a horse. It's
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, roll call, please.
Did we get a motion?
No.
We did not.
Any
Did I
motion?
skip that? All right, we did question, sorry. Actually, I did motion first. but- All right, so I did that a couple meetings in a row. All right, so at this time, we'll need a motion to approve the schedule of bills.
So moved.
Moved by Councilwoman Dean. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the Vice President. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Vice President Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Urschel.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is reports of committees. Our first report is Traffic Commission, which was originally scheduled for March 1st, 2021, chaired by Vice President Dean.
That was canceled due to lack of agenda items.
Thank you. Traffic Commission canceled again because of lack of agenda items. Thank you. Our next item is Board for Recreational Arts and Cultural Activities. That's chaired by myself. I will report that we did meet on March 2nd. We did have a full house with the exception of one member was absent. Our school board representative is no longer with us on bracket, so that appointment will have to be made later by Xenia Community School Board. At that meeting, we did welcome Mr. Tom Harlan, who was appointed at our last council meeting and has taken the place voting member of Councilman Urschel. He took your place there.
Right.
So we had one student representative that attended the meeting for the first time. Mr. Joe Vogelsong is a junior at Xenia High School, and he will be taking the place of our de facto member, which was Garrison Henry, who will be graduating very soon from Xenia High School. And we did elect a vice chair. Mr. Tom McCarthy is now the vice chair of BRCA. Basic discussion at that meeting was the community Easter egg drive-through giveaway. Mr. City Manager, do you want to cover that later, or do you want me to just go ahead and bring that up? Okay, so Easter weekend, that Saturday is April 3rd, and City Clerk, correct me if I'm wrong, we are doing an Easter egg giveaway at Shawnee Park, beginning at 10. Please arrive at 10 or shortly before 10. Don't arrive at 9. because you're just going to back up traffic. There is a flyer that is going out next week to Xenia Community Schools. Do we have that flyer on the screen tonight? No. Okay. So and that will also be on our social media site for the City of Xenia and our Facebook site, I'm sure. So there's a lineup of traffic flow. Can you help me with those streets?
Down
South
Edison.
Park Drive,
Down Park Drive?
South Park Drive, and Detroit Boulevard.
It starts at
They're
that.
entering off of 68 on Edison.
Oh, then
And
that's
wrapping
Weaver Street.
around in front of the school, and then up the park, and then out Corwin.
No, that's,
Weaver Street,
That's
Edison
Detroit
Boulevard,
Boulevard.
South Park Drive.
Okay, Weaver, then Edison.
Weaver to Edison to Park to Detroit Boulevard, which is
Detroit
below the
Boulevard.
bike trail.
Okay. There'll be signage. I already talked to Mr. Cook about that. And so just watch for that. We are asking, do not get out of your car and run up to see the Easter Bunny, because it's just going to back things up. So if you have 3 kids, say 0 to 12, you'll get 3 bags of eggs. So we'll have volunteers that are passing out the eggs. And you can take it home and hide them in your yard. You can go to grandma's, show them what you got, hide them at grandma's, hide them in your living room. When I was a kid, we would hide and find Easter eggs all the time. It was so much fun. So, but
Hide them at the city building.
there will, no, don't do that. There won't be baskets this year, though. We have decided to forego that. So, and before this event even happens, we'll have more about this next meeting. I'd like to thank volunteers already that are stepping up to help with this. And again, that's going to be from 10 a.m. to 11, or until we give away 500 bags of eggs or more. So we're excited about that. The other item that we talked about at BRCA was tree committee, and possibly working forward with fishing derby. We're just not sure about that, right? We're not sure about the fishing derby this summer?
Yeah.
Okay, and we are working on Hometown Christmas already.
Yeah,
For next
and I'll have a
year.
brief report on the fireworks festival here in a moment.
Right, so again, that's all we had for BRCA. Our next meeting is to be determined. All right, our next item is item C, Planning and Zoning Commission, scheduled for March 4th. Councilman Branham, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, we did meet. We elected a new vice chair. Well, the same vice chair, but Ms. Faye Cerise is back in the hot seat for the vice chair position. We approved 3 different conditional uses, one being an expansion with Fort Paul's at a building right next door, another one for a barbed wire fence at CIL Isotope in our industrial park, and then also an approval for a update to the outside facade of Arby's. So, looking forward to those projects getting underway.
All right, thank you very much. Does anyone have anything for Councilman Branham regarding planning and zoning? All right, anyone else have anything that they would like to report on? Did I miss any committee meetings? BZA, nothing? No? Okay. Next is appointed official reports, council comments. We're going to start first with our city manager.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to keep it brief because I've talked way too much tonight. First, you mentioned nuisance properties. We did receive a letter of concern. We encourage folks to contact the city manager's office, planning department, police division. Any of those offices or agencies can be a part of helping address those issues. And oftentimes when we have significant nuisance properties, we will engage all of those offices and the various code provisions that we have to make sure that we don't have properties that are bringing down neighborhoods. So we are in the process of addressing the particular incident that was mentioned in the letter. I just want to reinforce with folks that we need that feedback from you. It helps us to prioritize and to know what's going on. Second, we mentioned moments ago, activities. For the most part, based on the guidance that we've received in discussion with council, we're foregoing most activities that we would normally undertake in the spring, with the exception of the Easter egg event that the council president mentioned. We are, however, planning to look at activities beginning high summer and then moving into the fall. And the premier event that we have locally is the Sunny Cab Fireworks Festival, and we have already begun the planning for that event this year, working again with Xenia Rotary. We have graciously had the mayor step forward to help with some of the coordination of that, and are calling on a few more of our staff members this year. So our intent is to be able to hopefully have the event at Shawnee Park. We are projecting that the COVID situation will advance to the point we can do that, and that we will again continue some of the activities that have been working in conjunction downtown. So planning is still somewhat preliminary. We'll begin some of the marketing and outreach on that probably in the next month or so, but wanted to let folks know that we are planning to do that. We're very excited to be able to congregate again this summer and celebrate our freedom. Finally, just wanted to mention that working on a report on various different projects and things for council, so look for that in the next week or two. Pretty comprehensive update on a number of things. And with that, that's all I have this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on, thank you for that report. Anyone have anything for the city manager? Next up.
I've got one item.
Yeah, sure. Councilman Urschel.
So Brent, we had the introduction of the proposal for the DORA, and reading through that proposal, there was a tentative date of public comment, but so we're at March 11th right now. Can you go over what the plan is for public input for that, and how will the public know what that methodology is going to be? And the reason I'm bringing that up is I'm very interested in understanding what the community is thinking about this, but I want to make sure that I know we're pressing on like this is going to happen, but I think a very critical part of this is the public feedback. So I just want to understand how we're going to notify the public that this is going on, that they have an opportunity to provide feedback, and then how is that going to be managed?
Yeah, well, I think to be clear, I think from staff perspective, we're pressing on with the assumption that the council will make a policy decision. Whether or not you approve that, I think is still to be determined. In my mind, it's undetermined at this point, and we'll go through these procedures to figure that out. We have with us tonight Ryan Baker. Ryan's kind of coordinated a lot of this process, so I'm going to actually invite Ryan to the podium. He can give you a little bit more insight as to the conversations that have occurred and what steps we have intended to have that community outreach.
There's been multiple outreach methods. Yeah, there's no podium, but hopefully everyone can hear me. Everyone in and around downtown that would be affected by the DORA, they have been contacted directly through myself and the rest of the development department. And then also for the public at large on February 4th and 11th, I believe, is when our advertisements for a public hearing went into the paper. They included Michelle Johnson's email that they could reach her directly, and her phone number if they wanted to make any comments to City Council.
It's still posted on the website.
And it's still posted on the website and probably down the stairs.
Public hearing discussion for your next meeting.
Yeah.
And I know that this has been very active on the news stations as well. So obviously, if we're not getting emailed, there's probably a good possibility either people, one, don't care, or they just need to reach out before the next week's or 2 weeks meeting.
I'm just concerned that as I talked to about 10 individuals scattered through the city, most were not aware that there was any availability for public input. So I don't know how many people actually get the newspaper in town, and I don't know how many people actually go into the city website and actively look at that. I think if we pulsed our community, it would be a minority that are doing that. And so I'm just more concerned that we're actually reaching out to folks to make sure that they are aware of that.
Yeah, so I think, given what Ryan said, in terms of those parties that would be most immediately impacted in terms of proximity to where the door would be, that outreach has occurred. Not only the business owners, but property owners adjoining that location or that zone. I'm not sure what other mechanisms, particularly right now with COVID, that we have at our disposal in terms of the general public. So typically,
so we send out utility billings to every resident in the city. Is that correct?
to every address.
Every address,
Yeah.
right? Which covers an awful lot of the residents of the city, right?
Yeah.
It would be, I mean, it would be abnormal. I have not ever seen us put an advertisement for a public hearing in the water bill, but, I mean, if council desires to do that, it's certainly an option, but that's not been something we've ever placed in there before for any other public hearing.
Most of your statutory requirements, and even in the context of locally, they're still rooted in newspaper. That's your primary means of, paper of general circulation. Statutes allowed us to use electronic means, and the policy of the council is we've relied a lot more on social media and website. Those are the prominent mechanisms that we have available in terms of letting folks know. I hate to turn the tables, but I would say that there is a responsibility of the public, of the general public, to engage with their council and to understand. We make these materials available. We provide opportunities for public notice. Obviously, during COVID, it's a little limited in terms of folks' access here, but I know all of you are very open to receiving those phone calls. We have been, Ryan and Steve, and our
Are we
capacities.
planning on having in-person access at our next meeting for discussion on this, or what's the plan for that?
As the council president suggested, that's what I've recommended. I think we're at a point, given the numbers we've seen locally and at the state level, even though our county designation has not at this point been, reduced back out of the red. Given what we've experienced with staff and in the community, we think that we're in a zone where we can open the meetings up a little more. Now, again, I think we'll probably not be able to fill the gallery. We'll have to limit the amount of seating capacity. But if we need to, we can set up capacity in the lobby as well. So I think, we want to be transparent. I know that's your desire. We want to make that ability to provide input accessible. I guess what I would argue is I think we've done what we can do within our means. But there is some responsibility of the public to engage and to know what the council's discussing, and we're certainly open to other ideas if you've got them.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's our responsibility.
I'm sorry,
quite
I didn't hear
frankly,
that.
it's our responsibility. We represent,
Right.
we were elected. Every one of us has our social circles, and we are, I'm in most of the downtown businesses on a regular basis within our sphere of influence. If we have interest in this, I think a lot of it is our responsibility to be talking to people and asking the question. You said you've talked to 10 people. I just wanted to say, I know that I do think that the city is somewhat limited in what they can do as far as social media and newspaper and whatnot. If people want to pay attention, they do. Otherwise, I do think it's a lot on the council to be out there talking about the public hearings, not just this one, but in general, when we have public hearings, I think it's our responsibility to be bringing that up. I think that's us.
Okay. I guess my only comment is I think this is a much broader impact than just the businesses within
I agree,
the area
and that's
of
why
that.
I think that it's up
And I
to
think
us to bring it up.
Yeah, I hear you. And I just think this is something that we ought to be hoping that we're going to get feedback from the general public and not just the business owners within this area, because I really think this is going to be a change of the flavor, especially as we're going to the new town square and the development with that. This will be a change of the flavor downtown. And it's not just for the business owners of downtown, it's for the entire city from that perspective. And so I just, so I'll be very proactive with that. I'm just also concerned, though, that we're going to have a forum to do that, and knowing some other things where we've had public comment on it, we've had significant body of people show up, just to make we're prepared, especially since we're coming out of limited access that evening, that we're able to handle that. And will this be a time where each member will have, or is it only a selected number of people will be able to talk, or what's the plan for that evening?
Well, that's up to the discretion of the chair. Obviously, there are some precautions that we need to take. Look, you know where I stand. I would open the whole thing up right now in terms of public access in the building. We can't right now, so we are going to have to limit some of the capacity in the building. But again, as we have done for the past number of months, there's nothing to say a council or a citizen can't email the clerk, email any of you, pick up the phone call. This council's been very good about conveying messages that you've received through this modified public input process over the last couple of months. So those are all means by which I know you would take into consideration. And I don't want to come off as short or trite about it. I think we, as staff, genuinely want that feedback. I will tell you, I'm just not sure what other mechanisms we have available to us. It is a unique period right now, and a lot of the mechanisms that we would normally use just to stay interactive with other stakeholders in the community, they're just not even meeting right now. So, we're a little bit limited in our ability, just, sort of face-to-face interpersonal communication to be able to
I'm a
share
little bit
that.
concerned that we're going to try and do this in tandem with a council meeting. And I'm just a little bit concerned we're going to put some pressure on limiting feedback so that we can press on with what will probably be a very full agenda for the evening, right? And so some things like we're doing in terms of the planning for the downtown, we're going to have some public forums where we have people come, and that's the specific agenda for that time period, is to give us feedback as we go into the planning for downtown. And this is another planning item for the downtown area, and I'm just concerned that by tacking that, I'm just telling you, I'm a little bit concerned, so we can see how that plays out, but...
I think that you need to encourage people then to also email. I understand, I hear you, and I agree, but I think people can rotate out, but I also think we have read every email into the record.
Okay, all right, my concern is, I get that, I don't think we would do a planning for the downtown development as a tack-on to a council meeting.
That's fair.
Because, and I think this is on the same order of impact, and it's going to be in tandem with that, and I'm concerned that making this as an addendum to a council meeting is not doing justice for what we need to do. I'm just putting my concern out there.
I mean, the other thing we can do, we obviously we haven't discussed this, but if there's a concurrence among, or a consensus among the council that you want to extend the time period, there's no deadline that this has to be approved. I think the staff's...
Yes, I'm sorry, Brent, there is.
It is, right.
There is actually a deadline.
That's right.
Once that notice has been published in the paper, and that is a statutory requirement, the public hearing has to be advertised twice. No earlier than 30, but no later than 60 days after that first publication, council must approve or disapprove the application. So you are actually under a...
Let me revise what I said.
That's
That's certainly true, but nothing precludes the request for consideration again. We can go through the process again. So the deadline, the timeline that we've established is to be able to maximize the benefit for the coming fair weather season. That's kind of what we do, the predication on which this timeline was established. So given what the law director said, we're locked into, to this feedback process right now. If you opt not to move forward, nothing precludes us from bringing it back. I guess I understand your concern. I think it's a valid concern. I think all of you and all of us want the community engagement on these topics. I'm just not sure how else to do it, because I do think the public has to meet us halfway. The public has to be engaged. We literally can't go door to door right now. So I don't know what other mechanism we have at our disposal to be able to get that news out. I just am not sure what it is.
All right, I'd like to field a question from Councilman Scribbins.
In terms of getting the word out, maybe we can put some sound on Channel 5 instead of having a billboard up there all the time and a clock that's not on time. We can redouble our efforts to actually try to communicate better.
I'm not opposed to that. I think what we believe, or what we know at this point, is there's a pretty limited audience on that. So it is a mechanism to connect to a certain segment of the public. But the vast majority, based on the responses we get, the vast majority of people in terms of their communication with local government really is through social media at this point, which is where we put a lot of attention. But a lot of the video products that we produce can be put on Channel 5.
With sound. I mean, people, if they like me, they'll arrow right through it. There's no sound. Everybody's a dummy, and we go right on past it. So if we had sound, maybe they'd stop and listen, and you would be explaining and narrating like you do so well. Sound would help. That's my comment. Thank you.
I just feel compelled to say I'm not against anything that's been suggested, but every piece of this is another thing that the staff would do.
Sure,
we have one PR person, we have one downtown person, so there are some capacity limitations.
So is the plan to vote, to hear the public input at the beginning of the meeting and then to vote at the next meeting as well, or are we going to hear next week and then wait until the following meeting to vote? What's the schedule?
Well, the public's, according to this resolution, the public hearing is scheduled for our next council meeting, March 25th.
And so we're planning on hearing that, and then we're going to consume all that, and then we're going to vote on that the same evening. Is that the plan?
do we
Yeah,
have to
I don't know
take
how much all
action?
that'll be. I think that, I mean, to this point, I don't, you know, we've gotten some feedback through the conversations that Ryan and Steve have had with businesses and property owners that we've done the individual outreach. But yeah, that's the way it's currently scheduled.
Okay,
I'm
so
just
we-
trying to understand what the timeline is.
And looking ahead, you have a second reading and public hearing scheduled, of course, for this DORA. You have, right now, we're projecting a second reading for another resolution from tonight. One ordinance that the law director mentioned in terms of Title VIII that would be introduced, and then several other administrative motion action items. So it's not a real robust agenda next time. You're looking at probably 6 or so agenda items, so a lot shorter than these last couple of meetings.
Okay, so I do get where Councilman Urschel's coming from, and I do know staff has put a lot of effort into this DORA and has researched, but in all due respect for where he's coming from, there is going to be some political heat after the fact, because people are going to say, well, when did that get pushed through? And I'm not for that. So I think council's position has shifted a little bit on this. I don't think it's a total slam dunk. I think what he's asking for is not unfair if we, not to drag our feet, but if we're asking for input during the pandemic. And this is a major change to our downtown flavor. And we've talked about this before, and I think there is some, I think there's going to be a little bit of fallout from this. I don't think
I agree.
everybody's...
I don't disagree with the timeline, though. I
Right.
think that if we do our job, and we are encouraging people to speak up, whether it's through email or in person, I think I'm okay with the timeline.
Well, let me say this, because I get what Brent's saying, that it takes staff time and that there are a lot of things that would go into making that happen. But I would say, to me, that my biggest concern would be consistency, because a public hearing is a public hearing, whether it's for the budget or the capital plan or the DORA or whatever it might be. And so I think it would be a little odd for council to promote certain public hearings more so than they promote other public hearings. Because then you have the public saying, well, why didn't the council really publicize this? Are they trying to slide this particular thing under the table? To me, if you have something that you want to do from a public hearing standpoint, then it really needs to be the policy in every public hearing that we do. Because right now, when we have notice of a public hearing, it's consistent. Maybe the timing is a little different based on what's required, but the methods are the same as far as how we're communicating to the public. And so I think we do have to be careful in not publicizing one type of public hearing through one set of avenues in a different set of procedures for advertising other public hearings.
Yeah. Well, one thing that does concern me, though, is that we don't know what the feedback we're going to get over the next 2 weeks, or what may come forward.
Speak up.
We don't know what the feedback is we're going to get over the next couple of weeks, or what we'll have read in the record, or who's going to be here. I'm a little bit concerned about us hearing that at the beginning of a meeting, and then during the meeting, while we're working other agenda items, we've got to make some decisions upon what we've heard. I don't know why we can't have a public meeting and then give us a little bit of time to consider that, and then vote or do the second reading or whatever we need to do in the following meeting. And I don't believe that'll get us out of the timeline that the law director brought up at that point. I don't understand why that has to happen all in the same evening.
We've never done that before, though.
I don't care whether we've done it before or not. I'm just saying.
Actually, we frequently will have a public hearing and then follow up with a pretty immediate vote on various items. Again, as long as it's compliant as the law director is advising in terms of the timeline, it's not that I don't care, but it's your decision on how you want to act.
Right.
I think Ryan's point is good. Careful the precedents you set, because you're sending a mixed message to the public.
Sure.
And what I would advise the council is, if you end up moving forward and have a vote next time, and you don't feel it's appropriate, vote no. And we'll put an end to this and move on with life. But, we need the public input. Council needs that to make an informed decision as to what your constituents want. But I guess what I'm trying to represent is we are limited in our capacity to how we can outreach.
I get that. I take the feedback from that perspective. And so I just would like to give some input to the council chair as you're setting the agenda, that I understand we've already legally put ourselves to get the hearing, and we have multiple venues to do that, but I just respectfully like to make a request that we go ahead and get that feedback, but that we also need some time to consider that as a council. I'm just saying wisdom says that trying to consider the feedback you've got in real time to make a decision is not a wise way to proceed, especially on something like this that really is going to change the flavor of the city. I get that. There's 100 other things that won't have the impact that this will, and I really believe we need some time to understand that. So
I would suggest that if that's the intent of council, that we also take a step back and look at other procedures as it relates to public hearings. Because if we're going to establish this as a precedent, this council should be consistent in how you're considering items of significant import to the community and the timing for that public input and public hearing, and as it relates to when you vote.
Right. But I would also say,
You've got to remember too that some of these things, we don't have a choice on how they're advertised. State statute, the number one method under state statute as far as public hearings is you publish it in a newspaper of general circulation. That is what is required under the statute. So our hands are tied on a lot of things as to how we even will be able to advertise those.
Okay, so we can
What happens if
take
in 2
care of
weeks
this.
nobody shows up?
I'm sorry, hang on just 1 second. Let me ask this question. There is no way at this time, because this has already been published, so that the public hearing's March 25th, that we can't push that off. Am I right,
I'm not
Madam Law
requesting that.
Director?
I understand. I'm not requesting that.
It's already been published,
Okay,
so
right.
I'm not sure how you cancel it.
Sure. And I take the
So we
feedback
can
from the
have-
mayor that, okay, so we'll go out and make sure that we work that. But I'm just
Okay.
saying,
Yeah.
my other concern, though, is we don't know what kind of feedback we're going to be getting that
Okay,
evening.
so we can have the public hearing, but do we have to vote on March 25th?
Ryan or Brent can answer this. What was the date of the initial advertising? What date did we first advertise the notice?
February 4th, I believe, is the first, I believe. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty certain it's the 4th. Michelle, have that?
I'm sorry, Brent, I couldn't hear him. What's
Okay,
the-
'cause we
Ryan
don't speak
believes it
up,
was
they keep
February
running.
4th, and that's going to, Michelle's going to confirm that. By the way, Councilman Scrivens, while she's looking for that, I received a note that right now we do not have the ability to do audio on Channel 5. I don't know if that's a technical issue or a limitation of the program, but we're limited to video only.
Yes, February 4th.
Okay, Rob, we're looking at that. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Dean, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
What
that's
was your
fine.
comment
Just like if we
question?
have that hearing in 2 weeks, what happens if nobody shows up and says anything?
Then it's,
So are we not gonna vote? Are we gonna vote?
April 5th
2
is
weeks
60
after that,
days,
then we
so there really isn't any way for you to table it at your next meeting. The 60-day timeline would run out on April 5th, and the only meeting you have between now and then is the March 25th one.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, Danette, help me understand. So, are you saying that, and I understand what you're saying. Let's say we get very little public feedback and we press on. Let's say we get a lot, and we as a council say we need some time to make a decision on this. Are you saying that if we choose not to vote on this at that time, that we have to restart the whole process again per statute? Is that what you're saying?
that's the way it goes.
That is what I'm
That's exactly
saying. Under the Ohio Revised Code, council is required to take action no earlier than 30 days,
No
but not
later.
later than 60 days after the initial publication of the public hearing.
And action is defined
If that
by,
was advertised on February 4th, then our 60 days runs out on April 5th.
and from a statutory perspective, action, as you define it, means what?
Approval, disapprove, or no action would by default would be.
What the statute says is the legislative authority must approve or disapprove. The basic rule of council is if you don't vote to approve it, then it stands
It dies.
disapproved. But you couldn't approve it after that 60 days.
It basically dies in
One
committee.
or the other has to be done within 60 days.
I guess technically you could probably have a special session between your 25th meeting and your April,
The next regular meeting.
uh,
But that's for the very next.
April 8th.
That'd be the first, right?
Does that have to be decided in advance, or can that be decided?
Could we make a decision that evening if we chose to do
Depending
that?
on,
Your requirement is to publish
15.
48 hours before, 24 hours before a meeting, so if you want to get together for that purpose, you could.
Okay. All right.
thank you.
We'll consider that as a possibility. So I think we're still under finance director, am I right?
I don't think we got to me yet. but-
Okay, okay.
I had asked a question
Yes.
for the finance director, but I don't think we passed him up.
Okay. Mr. Duke, what do you have for us
Yeah,
tonight?
so quick update on the water meter project. NECO has, they had stopped work since September because of the pandemic. This last week, they actually started operations again. So they began to schedule, they began to fix some of the things that we found as we went live on the software weren't correct. And they're hoping to be completed by the end of the month with all the installs. Now, obviously, some of that's contingent on cooperation of the public in scheduling those installs. But I think they're getting a decent response. They're hoping to finish that up. So making really good progress there. We are up and running on the software. We're getting about 90% of the city reads electronically on a regular basis right now. It's been a fantastic tool for us because we can go in and look at usage at any time of the day, give a whole lot more data to the customer than what we ever had access before. So from a customer service standpoint, it has been a huge improvement. There's another system, Waterworks, that will be rolled out to the public. We just had a meeting with them this morning, and we're going to start that implementation process here, hopefully within the next month and a half. So I would guess probably sometime midsummer, customers will have the ability to log into that system. And we'll probably try to get some sort of demo for council because it's got some really neat features. It'll you can set up all kinds of parameters for when you want to see texts or emails for leaks or high usage, so you can get notified right away that potentially there's a problem. It'll even lead you through different scenarios to check in your house to see if you can identify the problem yourself. A lot of really neat tools, access to your statements, your bills, and that kind of thing as well. So we're looking forward to rolling that out, and we're finally, hopefully, going to wrap that project up as some of these restrictions are beginning to be lifted, and the NECO feels a little more comfortable in getting back to work. So that's a really good thing. I think that's all I had.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else for the finance director tonight? All right, moving on. Madam Law Director, do you have anything else for us tonight?
Just three things. I sent the city clerk the rules of council with those updates you requested, so I'm sure she'll have those for distribution for you at the next meeting. If you will be thinking, please, about committees, the rules of council put it on the president to make the appointments to those 5 committees. But I would encourage the other council members, if there's one of those 5 that you would like to be on, to let President Smith know that we can get those appointments made. One thing I did want to touch base with you on, I will probably bring to you the Title VIII rewrite as a discussion item, so that you have a chance to review it before we ask you to vote on Title VIII as the boards and commissions. We did have some conversation last time about changing the name of BRCA. Mayor Mays was kind enough to send some suggestions. I wanted to run by you what I'm thinking, see if you would agree. Recreation and Community Events Commissions, you could call it RACE.
I don't care either way.
I'm okay with that.
Yes?
Sounds good.
Sound good?
That's
Okay,
great.
I
Thank you.
wanted to check and make sure you guys were okay with that.
Say that
name.
What's that?
Is that what I thought I heard, right? But I'm
It would be recreation and community events.
That ain't really
All right, never mind.
Continue in those terms, I was thinking running as an activity.
Not RAC.
And say no.
Let's just wait. We'll come up with some more.
What's wrong with the name you got?
BRACA?
Yeah.
Because it's not a board. It's no longer a board.
Well, now,
All right,
now it is.
all right, we'll come back next meeting on that.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
well,
thank you.
that's the title that I'm thinking, so, if you have any feedback on that,
Okay.
let me know, but I would like to put that on your agenda for the 25th as a discussion item, that we
Okay.
can talk through it before we formally present it for adoption.
We can email.
Sounds like that was-
That's all I had.
All right, anything else for the law director tonight? All right, moving on, council comments. I'll start to my left, Councilwoman Dean.
I don't have anything tonight.
Nothing tonight by Councilwoman Dean. Councilman Scrivens?
Mr. President, I only have one item, and that is the lighting across this intersection here to Whiteman and East Main. Again, it's very dimly lit. The traffic signal is not there. It's an accident waiting to happen, and I rest my case on that. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
This is something I was actually going to mention in the report that I referenced earlier. We are in the process of looking at design options for what would be a lawful and appropriate crosswalk there, which would be more involved than the prior. And so there literally is work in the queue right now to begin the design process. And we will find the resources this year to install that, because that is an important crosswalk that I totally agree presents a pedestrian hazard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilman Scrivens. Councilman Branham, what do you have tonight?
Just want to say that I look forward to seeing Miss Nancy at the next council meeting.
All right, thank you very much. Councilman Urschel?
Yeah, I've been sitting in on the township trustees meetings, and once again, I'm one council member out of 7, so I'm not saying I can make any statements for the council, but I've let them know that if there are things that they are concerned about, they could use me as a conduit to come back to us and hopefully work on some of the relationships there with the township. But during that time, we had a very interesting discussion about some items that multiple townships are concerned about, and we'll go into the specific issue, but it came up out of the context of the Greene County Regional Planning Commission. And I was not familiar with that group, and so talked to the Xenia Township manager about that. And I understand we do our own planning here within the municipality and have the right to do that, but that group is a regional planning commission, and there's some things there I think would be very beneficial to us to attend and understand the context of what's going on in the rest of the county, especially from the county commissioner's perspective. And we do have a seat on that commission from the council. We have a primary and alternate. We're already in their bylaws for that. It's just that we're listed as vacant because we have not provided them as a council with a name that we would like to have, or name as a primary and an alternate to attend that. At least my readings of the bylaws, there's no conditions on us to provide any resources besides attendance at that. And so I guess I'd just like to recommend, Council President, that we consider providing a council person to actually go and participate in that. And once again, I think it's more from an awareness perspective, but some of the issues that they were bringing up coming out of that not only affect the townships, but could also have some impact, I believe, us from a municipality and also from a developmental perspective. I think it'd be good for us to be aware of that. So that's all I have for tonight.
All right. Thank you very much. And if anyone would like to volunteer to be that representative, Greene County Planning Commission?
Regional Planning Commission.
Regional Planning, sorry. Please send me an email.
I nominate Councilman Urschel.
Okay, well, I know you were going to.
At one point, I'm fairly confident there was a fee for participation in that, and I could be wrong, but I remember us being a member of that, and I remember us participating, and I think that most of the cities in Greene County at one point were not participating on that committee.
Yeah.
And I don't remember all the specifics of it. But
So there are 3 municipalities that are not, the rest of the municipalities are.
but Beaver Creek, Fairborn, probably or two that are not participating.
Beaver Creek is, Fairborn is not.
Okay.
And we're not. And I
Okay.
think there's a third one that's not.
Maybe Velbrook.
Right,
Okay.
right. So let's look at that and understand that, but at least in terms of looking at the bylaws and of the commission, it didn't look like there was any mandatory fees that were required, so.
Okay.
Councilman Urschel, when and how often do they meet?
I don't want to hazard it. I read through the bylaws and I can't, so I'll tell you what.
We'll work on it.
Why don't I go and engage with the county folks on that, understand if there's any.
I have a meeting on Monday with them, I can ask them.
Can you ask them that? And
I'm
ask them if
interested
there's
as well.
also any fees or constraints on us with that?
The regional planner is a young lady who's housed in the old children's home building out there. On the second floor, they were doing a thing just recently about community input regarding 235 and 68 roundabout.
Right.
So she's there, and she's willing to talk to us.
All right, thank you very much. Mayor Mays?
Sure. Thank you, sir. Couple of things tonight. Had an opportunity to sit down with Jeremiah and Carolyn Bird of SOS Ministries, and if you're not familiar with what they're doing, working with people who are caught in sex trafficking around the state, but they're based here in Xenia. They're just doing tremendous work, and if you have an opportunity to look into their ministry and support them, I just wanted to highly recommend that. They're incredible people, and so yeah, I met with them last week. Wanted to remind everybody that Rob and Danielle Eldridge with Route 68 Vintage Toys, their Toy Expo is coming up on March 26th. I had a conversation with Rob just a couple days ago. They have now taken on a 5th building for the fairgrounds. It's a huge show. We went last time. We loved it as a family. My extended family came. It is a huge event, so just make sure that you save time for that on the 27th. It starts at 9 a.m., goes to 4 p.m.
Is that the fairgrounds?
At the fairgrounds. Their toy store, it is a destination. People from out of state come to this toy store all the time. They are doing very well. They're one of our downtown businesses that stays open until 7, and I just want to thank them for that. That has meant a lot to us as a family when we can get over there after work. They're expanding 2 doors down. They're just doing incredible job. So if you can support them, please do so. Please make sure you put it on your calendar to go out to the Toy Expo. Wanted to specifically note one of our people, Sherm Horsley. I got a call the day that the giant airplane went through, and it was a voicemail, and I sent it on to Brent and a few others. And this person on the phone, they were explaining to me how they had a cat that they were headed to Docton to put down, and it was a beloved family member. This is their family pet. They got stuck at the subway, the intersection there, and they were going to miss the appointment. They didn't realize what was happening. It was a very emotional thing. I think many of us who've had pets and had to put them down, it's very emotional. And when you're suddenly stuck because of a giant airplane, you don't know what to do. And Sherm noticed them and talked to them, saw the situation, and escorted them down the bike path to get them there on time. And the person that called me, I just profusely thanking the city for not just kind of doing their job, but going above and beyond, for caring, for being gracious. And it's a really proud moment, and I had an opportunity to call them back, and it's just, you don't get a lot of those phone calls where people call to say thank you. And this was the kind of thank you that meant the world to them. So great job, Sherm, and way to represent Xenia. And then last, I'm in some conversations with our city manager about some trash pickup, kicking around some ideas that somebody presented to me. But one thing that we talked about is that we need to lead by example. And so I wanted to kick out possibly us on a Saturday as council going out and picking up trash. I was looking at a couple different dates, either the 20th, March 20th, or maybe April 10th. It wouldn't be a meeting, there'd be no agenda. I know that we'd all be together, but I would want to invite all of you and families. So I'm going to send an email out, see if some of those dates work for you guys. And I think that for me and for my family, I think for my kids it would be good. They've started picking up some trash in our neighborhood with some guidelines. But it's been fun. It's been fun to help the neighbors that way, and I would love for us to do this as a project as council. So I'll send an email with some dates and see if anybody's interested, and no pressure, but if we could do that and just start leading the way, put the word out, if people want to come, I think that'd be great. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Mayor Mays, all the work that you do. And so please, council members, check your schedules for March 20th or April 10th and email her. Vice President Dean, do you have anything for tonight?
Thanks, Mr. President, but I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you very much. So the only thing I have tonight is to, with the inaction of the action of adopting the rules of council, we do have the 5 standing committees. They're on page 21. If you could take a look at those, email me your selections. Keep in mind, most of these committees would probably meet annually. Is that right?
Maybe quarterly at the
Quarterly?
most, unless other items.
Okay.
And by the way, also, Mr. President, the Budget Committee, our intent is that would, the current would carry into the new.
Right. Finance and Budget Committee is already appointed.
Could we have the refresh of the paragraph or two that would describe those committees as well, besides just the name of them, sent back out to us again?
I think we can work with Michelle and send that out.
It's in the last packet.
Are you asking me that question?
Yes, I think I heard that.
So these are standing committees, except for Finance and Budget Committee, the rest of these are now open. So we have Legislative Review and Governmental Affairs Committee, and I believe that would also incorporate Charter Committee, am I right? Charter Review is not
chartered by. Yeah, because that's.
No, that's not, okay. Sorry, Charter, sorry. Next is Property Management Committee, Public Safety Committee, and Public Service and Utilities Committee. It was my understanding EDAP was going to evolve into one of these.
Yeah, and we do have some
Go
more.
roll into
Yeah.
finance and budget.
That requires an ordinance to change the code.
Yeah, we do have some work and follow up to that, both with that committee as well as the clerk mentioned.
Okay, so we'll get some more information out on these, so.
Councilman Osho, in our packet for tonight, it's on page 7 of that.
We can work together with the clerk and make sure that those committees that would carry over or other commitments that would remain, that we'll clarify those, and then again, offer some guidance on what's expected in terms of commitment with these and the general scope of what the conversation will occur at those committees.
All right, thank you very much. Other than that, I have nothing else tonight, other than to thank everyone for their time. Thank Councilman Branham and Vice President Dean. We've been here since 4:30 this evening, as well as city staff for our Budget Committee meeting. So at this time, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
Moved by Councilwoman Dean and seconded by Councilman Branham. Any discussion on that? All right, roll call, please.
Vice President Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilwoman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Urschel?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Smith?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.